what successful people do is you don't always have to know what you want, but you have to know what you don't want. So I think we are kind of like constantly bumper carring our way towards the thing that we're chasing, and we don't always know what that is. Feeling up is so important because, again, taking back that power, not being like, oh man, I made this huge mistake. Or like, oh man, this thing happened to me. It's like, okay, so what happened? That sucks. It cost me money. It cost me time. Whatever the thing is that it took from you, you're now able to make smarter decisions going forward. And what successful people do is they get in the ring and they fail. With some bumper cars on, obviously you're not going from 0 to 50. I just think like the biggest thing that you can do to grow forward is try things and make mistakes.
Welcome to Builders, the podcast for impact-driven leaders who are done carrying it all and ready to scale with clarity, strategy, and freedom. I'm your host, Alex Snyder, strategic growth architect, creator of the CEO Recode, and second brain to leaders who are building brilliant companies without sacrificing every ounce of their time, energy, or sanity. Each episode, I sit down with bold leaders who've rebuilt, recalibrated, or redefined what it means to lead well and live well on their own terms. We talk messy pivots, leadership upgrades, tactical wins, and the deep personal work it takes to build a business that actually works for you. If you love the episode, make sure you follow, rate, and share it with another leader who's building big and wants to build smarter. And if you're listening and thinking, damn, I need someone in the guts of my business with me, let's talk. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth and define 2 to 3 high-impact shifts you can implement now to regain traction and build momentum. Now, let's dive in. Let's build it better. Stef, welcome to Builders. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you here. You are the founder of Broad World Consulting and really out there helping people put their best foot forward, which I love that perspective because it's so true when it comes to running a business. Like how you show the best can be surprisingly difficult. You are also a mother, a dance aficionado, a mentor, a blogger, a podcaster, a passionate traveler like me.
That is ADHD in like its finest form. It's like you can't just pick one thing and run deep with it. I'm like, I got to be scattered. I work better when I'm doing multiple things at a time.
I love that. And I mean, and because of that, I just simply can't do you justice. So I will go ahead and ask you to introduce yourself in your own words. Who are you and what are you building?
Yeah, so I'm Stef Vassos, as you said. My company is called Broad World Consulting. And while it started out as a marketing agency, we still do some agency work, but most of what I'm doing now is consulting. So I sell 1-hour time slots for smaller businesses. Doing agency work gets really expensive. So companies that wouldn't necessarily be able to spend a couple $1,000s a month on their social media, digital marketing, ads, etc., now have access to my CMO brain for an hour at a time. They come in, we have a quick chit chat about what's going on in their marketing, what's working for them, what's not. They walk out with a to-do list. Once they've actioned those items, I usually see them back about a week or two later to kind of walk them through metrics and things like that. And it, as you said, like I really try and help people put their best foot forward because so much of what we see now is like, you can't just be an RMT or an acupuncturist or a hairstylist or any of these like jobs where you're on your own. You also have to be a marketing person. So the companies that are winning or the independent like solopreneurs that are winning are the ones who are able to figure out social media, are able to figure out email acquisition and email marketing. So I'm now able to take my skill set and help people figure out how to do that and be in the digital space while like still doing what they do best.
I love that. And I also am always trying to figure out how to make my skills accessible to smaller scale, earlier stage, entrepreneurs and
Yeah. And you know what? That shift was huge for me. I come from a super corporate background. Like I spent 15 years in like extremely corporate, very well-known brand names that I worked for the first, 10, 15 years of my career. And what's crazy to me is like, I was kind of a cog in those systems and worked my way up. And when I left corporate, I was like, it's so cool to work with independents because you actually see the results and they're like, oh my God, it's like, it's not just like, oh, cool, we made this. And like that section of our job, like our business had like a 10% uptick. No, it's literally like, oh my God, we sent out an email and we had like this conversion on it. Like it's such a cool thing to see. And you actually, the wins are just bigger, even though it's a smaller company.
I can relate to that so much. When I left consulting, I remember thinking, I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I want to work in smaller environments where I'm growing more than fixing and where everyone really wants to be there. And for the most part is like vaguely going in the same direction. And I fully agree with you. The wins, the impact's my big one,
Yeah,
is
totally.
more tangible in
Yeah.
smaller organizations. So I love
Yeah.
that.
No, I love it. And it's, I think, as I said, like everyone's sort of expected to be this marketing person now. Like, it's not a big deal, just create more reels, but like, there's more to it than that. And like, so many people that I see are just like doing what I call post and pray, where you're like, here, I got a reel completed. Let's pop it up. It's like, but why? And did it work? And what did it lead to? So it's kind of cool to like take my more metrics based side and strategic side and watch them implemented. And because it just makes such a bigger impact on a small scale.
What gets measured gets managed.
Yes, 100%.
Love that. So take us back a little bit. You highlighted very humbly that you worked for some of the biggest, most notorious brands that, any of us would be
Yeah.
aware of.
I've had a very weird career trajectory because I did not think I was going to end up in marketing at all. I actually started studying broadcast journalism and I was doing an internship at a local like junior hockey team. And it was the year that we hosted the Memorial Cup. So that's super Canadian, but we have this like the big WHL, actually, it's all across. Anyways, without getting into the details on the hockey side, um, we hosted that and I was doing a media internship and I connected with this person who worked for Quiksilver Canada. At the time, Quiksilver had a massive office in North Vancouver with like 75 employees and operated separate from the Quiksilver that we know out of Huntington Beach. Um, I started working for them. They brought me in as a fit model at first, and then I slowly but surely, one of my favorite people, Jen Rainey, she is one of my biggest mentors. She was like, why don't you just take a job here? And she hired me in customer service. So I was helping retailers with like their returns and that sort of thing. Slowly worked my way up onto the sales team. So that was great. At like 22 or 23, I was spending 3 months a year in Huntington Beach, California. Not a bad place to be. And then I started to cut my teeth on like the marketing side of things, and not to date myself too much, but like Google ads weren't a thing. Like they were just becoming a thing. Facebook at the time was pretty much only a social network. There was no ads, there were no anything. So we could not even do placements on social unless it was organic. We actually added like a business profile. That's when they started pages, was while I worked there. So it was really cool to sort of like come up in this digital and learn everything on the job. So the digital landscape did not exist, and I sort of learned it on the job. Um, from there, I sort of woke up one day, and it was about 5 years into my time at Quiksilver, and I was like, what am I doing? I don't really want to be in sales. I don't know what I want to do. I have this like amazing job at 25. I'm the youngest person on the team. I always have been. Like, what am I doing with my life? And I was like, by March, I'm going to do something crazy. And randomly, I got a message from a girlfriend who lived in Dubai and was like, do you want to move to Africa? I'm West Africa in Ghana to run a sports event for multinational companies. And I was like, sign me up. So it was supposed to be a 3 month contract, ended up being over a year. And it was great because I was doing like this huge marketing campaign in a place that like was so different than Canada. So West Africa pretty much skipped desktop usage. They went straight from like zero digital to every single person has a cell phone. So everything went mobile first, which we didn't see in developed countries until like we still were like desktop first. Websites were still designed for desktop. We weren't clicking people through from social, which you're on your phone. So it was very like the usage was just so different. So that was a huge learning curve for me. But again, there I was working with like Coke, Nestle, MTN, which is their big cell phone provider. So we were running campaigns for them for this event. And it was just a really crazy learning experience.
Sounds like.
Yeah. And then from there, I needed to move back to a more developed country, just mostly for safety reasons, which is a whole other story and podcast.
We could
Um,
podcast about all the places we've worked for sure.
right. I know it got a little scary when I would get into a taxi and I'd be like, I live at, and they're like, yeah, I know, we know where you live. And I was like, okay, I think it's time for me to leave this place. So I moved to London and I started working for Hearst Magazines. And so Hearst is the conglomerate that does like Elle, Cosmo, Men's Health, Women's Health, all of those 27 titles, which is great. And I ran the campaigns. So a company would come to us and say it was Nike, and they'd say, we want to show everyone our fall line, but we'd have to obviously target that super different for Runner's World than we would for Cosmo or something. So it's just like completely writing these like campaigns and what they would show alongside the brands and like positioning them to our editorial teams. So totally different side of marketing. Really cool experience. I love London. London is like my home away from home now. And then it was time to move back to Vancouver after about 3 years. And I worked in tech. So for a company called Press Reader that's here in Vancouver. And we worked with airlines like Air Canada and Cathay Pacific and huge hotel chains like the Four Seasons and Fairmont and Marriott and Accor. So we were aligning, putting this tech into those companies and doing like cross promotions and commercials and you name it, just massive scale activations that we were doing. So that was probably one of the most fun jobs I had. We were like, doing fashion week promotions in Paris and things like that. So I was very much living my like Devil Wears Prada best life at that time. Yeah. And then that was it. Then I decided to work for myself and branch out on my own.
And so what I kind of heard from you was like, thirst for adventure, definitely the like, why the fuck not when an opportunity comes up,
Yeah.
I think I know you a little bit and from what you've told me, I see that like problem solver, like learn on the job, figure it out, rapidly changing
Yeah.
industries. I personally think those are a lot of the ingredients that make a successful entrepreneur, but I would love to hear your perspective on how you knew that you were meant to build businesses and, why this business, why now?
Yeah. So it was actually a really interesting thing. I think I always knew that I wanted to work for myself. I My parents are business owners and I saw firsthand like they very much had that like sometimes they were working at 10 p.m., but they were able to come to my dance competitions. There was this flexibility, but also like wait, the funny thing about entrepreneurship is people are like, you can pick your own time. There's so much flexibility. What they don't tell you is you'll just be working all of the time and you will never be shut off and you will never be detached because it's yours. Um, but I like that chaos, as you can probably hear from my willingness to just like move to Africa at 25. But yeah, it was definitely something that I knew I wanted to do. And the catalyst, which Alex, you'll find funny, is we rescued a dog from Mexico, my husband and we were not married at the time, and he's the cutest, and my husband has flexibility with his work, so he was the one who was like home and sending me videos, and I'd be like looking at my phone and it would be like, I'm so proud of him, he did this and this, and I was like, oh my god, this is how I feel about a dog. Knowing that I wanted to have children one day, I was like, if I feel like this about a dog and I don't have the flexibility to be like, you know what, I'm actually going to do this at 8 p.m. tonight instead of at 8 a.m. this morning, I was like, I can't, this is not for me. I also felt like at that point I had done so much corporate. And I had started sort of working, I think I was in that like sweet spot of like 30 to 30. I started it at, yeah, 33. So at like 30 to 33, a lot of my friends were starting businesses. So I was all of a sudden like sort of consulting anyways, because they'd be like, what do you think of this? Or, hey, I'm putting together this social thing. Or do you know someone that I could like who should do video content for me? And I was like, this is so fun. Cause then I'd watch their activations come together, or we'd like do a launch event. And I'm like, this is fun. This is what I like doing. So I sort of started side hustling. And then, yeah, I at one point just said, this is what I want to do. And it just makes the most sense for the lifestyle that I want to lead.
I love that. I mean, when the demand is there as well, when you're in the right network, the right community, I think it makes so much sense.
Yeah, and that was a huge part of it.
I love that. So you've worked across, Ghana, London, Vancouver, very big culture differences, and then across all these different industries. I'm curious, thinking about your leadership style, your leadership journey, were there, myths or, beliefs about leadership that you either had to rewrite or you had the opportunity to rewrite as you shifted into running your own organization?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that like definitely the tactics and the customs from country to country are just so different. North America, we have such a like hustle culture, but that doesn't mean we get more done. And that's the part that like really I've had to take a step back from is like there's this like everyone must be busy. The person who's like 5 a.m. club, that's the person who's winning and all this stuff. And it's like, well, that's not actually always the case. And not everyone's wired that way. Especially I find women are not wired that way. And if we look at like our hormone structure versus like a 24-hour reset that men get to experience, it's just a completely different way of thinking and being. And it's just not really for everybody. And it took me, again, I like hustled my butt when I worked at Quiksilver. I was 20 to 25 years old. And I was like green and keen and just like people pleasing. And like I could travel with samples, set them up until 2 a.m., do a 10-hour trade show, go out for dinner, schmooze clients, be up until 2 a.m. and do the whole thing again the next day with no problem. God, I wish I had my 20-year-old energy still. But like that was just such a different mentality than like I got to Ghana and it was everything's laid back. Nothing, you will never get a confirmation via email from people. You need to go and meet them in person. So a day for me, it would be like there was a huge boom, a huge gold boom in Ghana during the time I was there just before. So massive influx of foreigners coming into the country. The infrastructure had not kept up. They could not build roads fast enough. They could not add lanes fast enough. So everywhere you went, what would be, if you were actually going 50 kilometers an hour, what would be like a 20-minute drive would take you 2 hours during the day. So we were constantly in the car, in traffic. And just to get a face-to-face meeting where it was like, that was the custom was just, hey, how's it going? How are the kids? And it was such a crazy change from like sending a quick email, getting a response and being like, it's go time that we would have in North America to this like much more laid back and personal thing that we had in Ghana and like build that relationship. Then it goes to the next person. You're like, did I just accomplish anything or not? Like it was such a weird experience for me. But it taught me so much because I moved to London after that. And it was somewhere in the middle. I have to say, London does not have the hustle culture that we do. I think they've got it figured out. As I said, like it's the way to be. Everyone starts with 5 weeks of vacation, but they have the same productivity. So it doesn't show that like hustling and burning yourself out does not equal better results. It's just so fascinating to me because that was where I felt like people have sort of got it figured out. And that was a different way to manage teams too, right? So going back to your question about leadership is definitely figuring out what makes people tick and kind of playing within the bounds of like what culturally is okay and what culturally is the norm. And then kind of putting that like the spin on it of like, okay, and what motivates an individual. And one thing I talk about often is I even as a dance teacher, so I teach dance still because it's my favorite thing. I've danced since I was 3 years old. And what motivates one of my students is completely opposite. I have some kids who you need to rule with an iron fist. And if you're like, come on, get down another time, let's go across the floor, pip up the pace. They're like, they thrive. They love that push where other people need to be encouraged and like, that was awesome. Don't worry about it. Shake it off. Get to the back of the line. We'll try again later. Like it's crazy how you really do have to figure out what people respond to and what makes them tick.
I could not agree with that more. I think you articulated that beautifully. We can't ignore the shift that is motherhood as well in terms of how we lead, how we live. I
Yeah.
would love to hear about your experience, having your daughter, you know,
Yeah.
being being a business owner with, there's no safety net there. So it is a very different experience than particularly in Canada where we do have mat leave and a lot of, you know,
You do if you're paying
relatively
into it, but you don't if you don't. So
fair enough,
let me
fair
tell
enough.
you.
Relative
Yeah.
to some other neighboring countries, um,
Yeah.
there
Totally.
is more of a culture and structure for parents to take some time. I'm curious
Mhm.
what that transition was like, and sort of this ties into, we on this podcast and in my business, I talk a lot about success on your terms, what I think wealthy leadership means around
Yeah.
successful business, financial stability, and the pillars that make you the best you.
Yeah. Motherhood is 100% a shift. I knew that going into it. I did not anticipate it would be such a big shift. I think even those of us who think we're going in with wide eyes, like I had my first child at 36. So I only have one child, but I had her at 36. And so I was like, so many of my friends already have kids. I've seen how the shift works. I didn't anticipate the like literal primal pull you would have to your child. Like I thought I'm going to take 6 weeks and then I'll be back to work like, 10 hours a week after that. And then we'll slowly but surely like build up a little bit more time. That has not been the case because for me, I know going to regret, I'm never going to regret taking the time out of my work to spend time with her now because it's fleeting. I only have this like 4 year window where she's really little to be her mom. There'll be so much time for me to like work. There already has been so much time that I've spent working. But that's not to say it's so crazy because I go in these ebbs and flows of like really motivated and then like really enjoying motherhood. So it's definitely been a little bit more like unstructured, if that makes sense. Um, One thing I will say though is that with motherhood has come this like different sort of work ethic.
Mm.
When I'm sitting down to get something done, I'm getting it done. I'm like, I have carved out these 4 hours to get something done. It will get done. Like you
Mm.
just have like crazy mom strength and crazy mom brain power when it comes to these things. So, for example, we go to a co-working space that has childcare at it. Great business model, obviously created by women. And it's great because I sit down there. I have from 9 till 1. She's upstairs playing, singing, doing whatever. And I get shit done. What I used to stretch out to being like an 8 hour day, maybe like a quick little dog walk and like an hour for lunch, like is now like you have 4 hours to work, get it done. So that shift has been crazy. Um, and I think it's different for everybody. I mean, I realize that it's a privilege for me to not have to have her in full-time daycare so I can work a 40-hour week. Um, that's definitely come with sacrifices and conversations between my husband and I. But yeah, it's just a huge shift that like you need to figure out what works for you. Because I
Mhm.
have other friends that are like, after 4 months, they were like, I'm ready to go back to work. And for me, it took like a solid 6 months where I was like only keeping the wheels on, like the current clients. I was just doing that maintenance, but I was doing no business development. I wasn't changing, like updating my own social media. There was none of that happening. It was sort of just trucking along. But that was a privilege. And, there were sacrifices that came with not continuing to build. Um, but yeah, during that time, but it was like she hit 2 and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like mama's back. Let's go again. And it was just sort of a revamp. And
Mm.
from there, it just happened naturally. And I think one thing that I really was doing to myself in those first 2 years was being like, what are you doing? You've always been such a like go-getter. And there was all this negative self-talk. And it took some like major rewiring for me to be like, hold up, like your creative bandwidth is being used. This is a choice. And this is like, you have a choice here, which I always love to take back the like, you have a choice because it just gives you that power, right? This is not happening to me. This is something I have created.
Yeah.
I decided to have a child and I have choices. Do you want to put her in full-time daycare so you can work more? And then I was like, my gut was like, no, you don't. So
Mm.
let's find creative childcare solutions and ways that you can work while still sort of doing the lion's share of that child rearing that I didn't realize I would be so important to me.
I think that's such an important conversation because as the like childless, like by choice
Yeah,
friend,
child free.
child free, thank you. I so often my friends will talk to me about things they feel they can't talk to other women
Other
about
moms. Mm-hmm.
because there's like, am I a bad mom? Or they, I don't feel the same
Yeah.
way as what I see, or and I feel very blessed that, I can be that space for them. I think there has been a turning of tides of women being able to speak a little more openly and
Oh yeah.
acknowledge different choices with a little less judgment, at least with their chosen community, if not online. Has that been something that what has been most helpful for you other than the self-talk, which sounds like you've mastered it, which kudos,
Yeah.
by the way.
It's a work in progress. There's no mastering because it evolves because as soon as you figure your kid out, like as soon as you figure out how to have an infant, they're now walking. As soon as you figure out how to have this like early toddler, they're now like negotiating. So it's a completely different thing. I'd say the thing that got me through most was, again, a total stroke of luck. Two of my best friends had babies at 5 months and then 4 months before me. So the three of us have had this, and they're both one of them's like a finance lawyer, and the other one is she's works in tech and like does all of the op management, and she's just also extremely successful and organized. It's been great to have them because there is no judgment. We all are very much about our careers, but also very much about our kids. And in addition to that, we're also very much about ourselves. And I think this has been a huge thing as a mother and an entrepreneur is to not get lost in either one of those titles because I am a mother and I am a business owner, but I'm also just me, the girl who likes to like have a sleep in with a coffee and a book and go to a yoga class and then drink too much champagne on the weekend. Like that girl still exists too. So it's just a matter of like trying to honor those. And I think a misconception that we have is that you need to be doing all of those things at once. And it like that's just not an option. Like there are days where I am literally killing it at work. Like I'll have a content shoot and we'll like be so excited. Then I'll talk to another client and they're like, oh my God, I got my metrics back. And it was amazing. And I'll come home and my daughter is like, where the hell have you been all day? Meltdown city. My husband's like, hi, remember me? And I will have eaten like shit and not worked out and all of those things. But work was amazing. And I have to now look at that and be like, that's the success. Right. And now tomorrow we're going to get up and do a walk and get to the gym and make sure my daughter gets like 2 hours of one-on-one time. So it is just that the balancing act doesn't happen on a day-to-day thing like it did when I was child free and just an entrepreneur. It was so much easier to manage. But now that it's just a different dynamic. And I think I have to look at things on like a weekly balance. Okay, did the week look balanced? Or because like day to day, like there's just not enough hours in a day.
I love that you said that. I think about when I look at my friends, many of whom have families, the ones that seem to have figured it out, they look at the bigger picture. But to your point, they have found ways to still be them. I actually have friends who have gone like back into passions from when they were younger and like be more creative now that they have kids and they're still operating, to your point, like, high level professionals, potentially like a side hustle with their spouse, but they have found a way to still be them. And I don't think there's one version of it, but I definitely see a pattern where some of them, that is because with their spouse, they have like time for them as a couple, and then each of them have time for them as individuals, and they really like support, and I would almost say enforce that for each other.
Yeah, enforce is a great way to say it because like there are days when I'll be like beating myself up and we didn't sleep the night before and yada yada yada. And my husband's like, you need to go run a bath and like go do something for yourself. Or I'll be able to say to him, like, he's like, I'm not doing some like I'll just see he's kind of getting antsy. And I'm like, go to the gym and have a steam. Like that's what you need. I know you'll feel better. And taking that hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, literally is like a reset. And I say this all the time, even in business, like we talk about this, is like, don't, the expression, don't throw like good money at bad is one way to think about it. But I think about that with time too. Like, don't just keep sort of trying to push through, like stop, shake it off, start over. And it's it's crazy how much taking that time for yourself will literally just like reset everything. And I, again, going back to like getting things done in 4 hours, I can make something take 12 hours if I want to. But if I go in focused and be like, this is my time for this, I can make it happen in 4 hours at the same, quality instead of just like faffing about and getting things like dragged on.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that perspective. And I think that applies to everybody. We're talking about, being a parent and a business owner and, and maintaining you. But I do think for anyone who's listening, we have choices. You said it earlier. We have choices. We have resets in our brains. And like, just because you're having a bad moment doesn't mean you have to have a bad day.
No, totally. And I think like I've really tried with my mindset to like switch that because saying it is my choice, like I'm here because of choices I made, it actually is not like a victim mentality. It's very much the opposite, where it's like I'm in charge of this, which means I can also get myself out of it. If you don't like it, take the avenues you need to make the change.
I think it's an action-oriented approach, right? And like
Totally.
whatever
Yeah.
words work for you as an individual, it might be different for other people, but I'm the same. I said that to myself. I'm like, this is a choice. I choose to be here. Like I
Yeah.
choose this. What else do I want to choose? Right. And down to my thoughts to a degree, right? I'm like, do I want to keep thinking this? Do I want to keep feeling this way? Okay. Yes, no.
No, totally. Couldn't agree more.
So we talked a little bit about the shift of motherhood, but I would love to hear from you kind of what does success on your terms mean for you today? And has that evolved, over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's evolved a little bit. I mean, I think when we were younger, it was like the dollar sign was really like that carrot and that goal. Because at the time we had time and freedom and all of those things without so much responsibility. And motherhood, of course, plays into that. But for anybody, the older you get, the more responsibility you have. Maybe it's an ailing parent, maybe it's friends that are battling different illnesses, or you just have like a mortgage and other things. You just become more responsible, and more things fall on your plate the older you get. And sorry, what was the actual question?
Success on your terms.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
what does it mean to you, and kind of how has it evolved?
Yeah. So I think, when you have more responsibilities, I think that the success for me now, of course, there's a financial freedom aspect to it. Finances matter. Whatever people say, it's like, it does, no matter what people say, it does matter. Like you need to be able to, there's nothing more stressful than worrying about a mortgage payment or a rent payment or like any of that stuff. Most of us have been there at one point or another in our lives where you're like, what am I going to do this month? But so there's definitely an element of that. And, I love the ability to just be able to be like, screw it, we're ordering in tonight. Or like, you know what, we need to get away for the weekend. Yes, finances, money does buy you happiness. Not completely, but yes, it does help you buy happiness. So money does matter. But for me, it's more about how I want to live my life. Do I have the freedom to say yes to the things that make me happy? So yes, money plays into that, but do I have the ability to be like dropping my kid off or picking her up from preschool at 1:45? Yeah, I do. That's something I've created. Do I have the ability to get in a workout at noon? Yep, something I've created. And that to me is like, that is success, where you're not having to completely answer to someone else. No one else is telling you where to be, what time, how to act, how to behave. Like, do I not want to work with this client anymore? Like, here's the door. Don't let it hit you on the way out. Whereas, like, when you're working for somebody else, you still have to take that stuff on the chin. It's like that to me was so freeing when I got to be like, oh, this guy's kind of an asshole. I don't have to work with him if I don't want to. That to me is the freedom and the success. And I think for me, success is freedom and it's choice.
I think that's a really like common theme. And I do believe it has different definitions. I know for me, the definition has changed over time, to your point.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you think, how do you think we learn those lessons? Is failure necessary for success?
Absolutely. There's nothing. My brother once said this to me as, you don't always have to know what you want, but you have to know what you don't want. So I think we are kind of like constantly bumper carring our way towards the thing that we're chasing. And we don't always know what that is. But those failures teach you things. The like, oh, wow, that is not an experience I want to have again. Or, wow, those are not the type of people I want to work with. And it doesn't even have to be that personal. It could be like, wow, I have no desire to take on a client who works in this industry because I find that industry super dry. And trying to come up with creative content for that was like pulling my nails out, you know? So I think for me, it's more just that like failure. Trust me, I've had plenty in the last few years, but like it is about failing up. And I know that's such a like cliche little phrase right now, but failing up is so important because again, taking back that power, not being like, oh man, I made this huge mistake, or like, oh man, this thing happened to me. It's like, okay, so what happened? That sucks. It cost me money, it cost me time, whatever the thing is that it took from you, you're now able to make smarter decisions going forward. And I use this expression or this anecdote all the time when I'm working with my dance students is I talk about when my daughter Vivian was learning to walk. It's crazy because there's just like a little baby has zero self-esteem issues. Like they're just like, oh, I stand up, I fall down. I stand up, I fall down. We see that as like teenagers. We get embarrassed to make mistakes. Like, oh my God, what if I can't throw properly? Or like, I'm not even going to try it. So what we do is we step back and we just don't get in the ring. Like the whole Brene Brown getting in the ring thing. But what successful people do is they get in the ring and they fail. They fall down as a baby. They're not afraid to try the next progression in their dance steps. They're not afraid to take a leap or a risk in their business with some bumper cars on. Obviously, you're not going from 0 to 50, but for me, that's the same thing. And it's the same mentality. There's this great book about it called The Flinch. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but it's basically how we all have this instinct to like, oh God, that sounds scary. I'm just not going to do it. And that you have to push through that. It's socialized out of us so that we can be safe. But I just think like the biggest thing that you can do to grow forward is try things and make mistakes.
Is there something that stands out to you where you've like had to really overcome that flinch instinct?
Yes,
A game changer?
definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I've always worked as an agency since I've been on my own. So how that usually works is because of my background is very much in like the strategy, copywriting, messaging, overarching marketing plan. And I've always worked like an agency. So I would hire in like, okay, that's the right photographer for this. This is the right graphic designer, web developer, social manager. And I would put together these awesome teams and we'd work as an agency, which is great. However, managing time on those projects can be really challenging because what you think is like a 110-hour project often ends up being more. And that was really not working with how I wanted to live my life and like what limitations I had in my structure of day to day. So I started like building out just consulting time, like we talked about at the beginning of this chat, is a call that I get on and then it ends. And then I have 15 minutes of work to like send them. And then that's it. And I go home and I'm done and I can shut off and not think about that anymore. But going to that model was so scary for me because one, it's trading dollars for hours, which is a lot harder to scale. Two, it just to me was like, I was like, I'm at this like precipice of building this thing, but I knew it wasn't right. Something kept being like, this isn't right. I was working on weekends. I was doing things that like, you know, my husband would be out for a walk on the seawall with my dog and my baby on a Saturday and I'd be home at my computer. Like that was not the lifestyle I wanted to live. So I very much felt that flinch of like ego being like, no, that's not who you are. You're growing, you're scaling, you're doing the thing. And I quickly like jumped back and was like, hold on, where is this coming from? Who cares? This is what your gut's telling you. Like, this is the era you're in, and we can always scale up later. Like, it's okay to take a step back and do this other thing. I still have like 4 agency clients that are on retainer. So it's not like I'm not doing the thing and couldn't amp that up if I then change my marketing back to that when kids are in school and the whole thing. So yeah, that was definitely a flinch that I was like, you have to figure out where the flinch is coming from, right? Is it fear-based? Is it ego-based? What is that? And for me, it was very ego. It was like,
I want to just highlight that if anyone's listening, like that self-awareness, that reflection, I think that's why you are where you are, right? That's why you are so successful. I think it's the willingness to to reflect and be like, what is that? And also sometimes you got to take, I don't really want to call it a step back. I just can't think of a better word right now.
Yeah.
Like a
No,
step
but
back
I
to
think the step back in a
forward.
sense of like, take a step back to take a look at it, right? It's not even like a backward step. It's more just like, you're too close to the painting, like zoom
Exactly.
out so you can see it and be like, oh, that's the thing.
Yeah, because you could also run both the kind of consulting call structure and the agency structure with a slightly different operating model, slightly different team that
Yeah.
either allows you to scale the consulting model or allows you to do more agency work without it, requiring your constant presence and trade-offs that you don't want to be
Yeah.
making, right?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is the one big takeaway. I mean, I'm not the person who joined a company straight out of college and stayed with them for 40 years. And I think the majority, I'm a millennial, majority of millennials and Gen X or Gen Z are going to be the same way. Actually, a lot of Gen X as well. Like it's not who we are. We are going to jump from company to company. We are going to take on new skill sets. The way tech is evolving, our skill sets are rapidly changing. Like we made jokes about if you took marketing, I didn't take marketing in school. If you took marketing in school when I was starting my marketing career, you would have learned completely obsolete. Like half of the curriculum probably would have been obsolete. So, yes, obviously, there are certain things that you need to that are great to learn in school, but like learning on the job now is so important. There's so many things that are industry specific. Again, the exponential growth of technology at the moment is like it's important for us to keep evolving and growing. So I don't see my career now as the thing that I'm going to be doing 10, 15, definitely not 20 years from now. I will be doing something like this, but just like letting things become what they are, not trying to like structure them, let them kind of like take on a mind of their own. And I say this to my clients all the time because, like, for example, I have an amazing cosmetic client right now, and she's an optometrist. It's all eye safe. It's really cool. And she is super passionate. And we started out as this like brand that was doing this thing. But as we started putting it out to the market, it was crazy how what we thought was going to be mostly B2B sales through other optometry clinics, et cetera, it just starts to take on a life of its own and become this B2C product that was completely different. And then we now are like, okay, well, this is the messaging that is working. And we're listening to the feedback and letting that dictate where that goes. I see my career in the same fashion. So yes, this is working right now because it's that balance of like what's working business wise, but what's working for my lifestyle. And again, what I deem as successful and trying to like let that happen and let it mold how things evolve instead of like forcing. And I'm a Capricorn bitch. I love to structure. I love structure. I love control. I love all those things.
I wouldn't
But
know
let me
anything
tell
about
you,
that
like the
as a
lesson I
Virgo.
have learned, I think that's the biggest thing I've learned in motherhood is like try to be in a flow state. Like let it happen. Don't my husband, if he was listening to this, would be laughing his ass off right now. But that is my thing I'm working on is like being in flow state and letting things go and like trusting that process.
It's so funny because I mean, yeah, as a Virgo, I don't understand that at all.
My
My
daughter's a Virgo, my poor husband.
control, oh my God. Yeah, like, structure, control, get it done. But then I'm also a projector in human design, which and my like success metric is invitation. So,
Oh
and
yeah.
literally almost everything that's been big in my life has come to me. I have not applied or
Yeah.
which, and obviously when you look under it, you're like, it comes to you because of the things and,
Yeah, of course.
I was a massive workaholic, hustle, like, grew up with
Totally.
achievement orientation athlete. So I'm
Mhm.
not like lounging a life of leisure and things just come to me, but it's such an
No.
interesting dichotomy and what you described of like that Capricorn tendency and that structure. I mean, strategy, marketing, the size of brands and companies you've worked with, like of course you are on it.
Yeah.
And as you look at, like you said, zooming out life as a bigger picture, like how does it flow? How does it come together? How do you see the signs
Yeah.
and make the decisions? I think is so interesting.
Yeah. No, that's exactly how I feel. And I think I used to really compartmentalize my life where it was like, okay, now I'm at work and now I'm at the gym and now I'm being social. But quickly I realized like if you remember back when I worked at Quiksilver, we had remember the Blackberries that had the little red light that would flash at you when you had a message? That little red light like trained my brain to like always be on my phone. And I mean, we're all in the same boat with this, but like it was crazy because I started to not be able to compartmentalize. When I was being social, that red light would go off and I would be like, okay, I'm also now working. When I was at the gym, the same thing. Or I'd be thinking about like my social, I'd be sending a text being like, hey, what bar are we going to? Like between sets, I'd be like, where do you guys want to meet after? You know? So it was that bleeding into one. And I think as soon as you can start to see your life is not your job, your relationship, all those different buckets, yes, they are separate, but like it's all one life. So, in order to really find that happiness and really find that success, you have to figure out how they can all be married together and live in harmony. Not like I would dread being in a position where I was like, oh, thank God I'm off work. Like, thank God it's Friday, you know, because that's not, it's just not possible. The brain doesn't just shut off. You're thinking about the thing that's coming Monday. You're probably getting emails over the weekend. So, in order to integrate that life together, you need to be able to see it as one holistic thing. So yeah, it's something that I'm very much trying to cultivate as a whole lifestyle as opposed to, you know, separation.
I love how you articulated that because I often say, you know, the value of an entrepreneurship is you get to build a business around something you're passionate about and a culture that you enjoy that represents you and attracts people who have similar values, right? And that ultimately makes something that you enjoy and want to be part of and want to think about. And yeah, we got to control the mind monkey that's like, you know, programmed to be busy all the time or worry or fixate. But I like how you articulated that I had very stringent divisions. And when I let that go, definitely a net positive in my life.
For sure. Yeah. 100%.
So you just highlighted to a degree, you know, you worked across action sports, fashion, travel, publishing. I'm curious how that shaped your perspective and your approach on what you do now in the marketing consulting business.
Yeah, I mean, I think industry to industry, there's obviously a lot of nuance. But at the end of the day, it's all the same. You're looking for similar metrics. You're trying to quantify similar things. Like yes, for you know, if I'm working with a brand that sells coffee for $4 a cup, it's a completely different marketing strategy than like someone who's selling a $70,000 car. However, we still want to know like what is the cost of acquisition for a customer? We still want to know, you know, is it a one-time purchase or do we have a lifetime value attached to that client because they're going to come back and purchase? How do we do client retention? How do we make sure that there's like a referral program in place? So even though it's a very different like user journey or like purchase journey, we still have the same sort of metrics that we're looking for. And it's very unsexy at the end of the day. We put pretty bows on it and call it different things. And like, marketing is way more than lipstick on a pig. I hate when people assume that it's like, well, they just had a really beautiful reel. Why didn't it work? And you're like, what was it attached to? Where did it send them? What was the call? Like all of those things that just, yeah, but there's so much similarity in how we structure those things. It's just a completely different like tactic or user journey, like I said.
Yeah, I absolutely could not agree more. I had someone I work with who was, you know, coaching me and I put something out, I put all this like love and energy into it. And my designer we'd updated the brand and she was like, babe, love this. Simplify your font. It's beautiful, but what we need is for people to read it. We're going for strategy and accessibility over looks.
100%.
Like redo it. And I was like, oh, but she's right. Like if it's hard to read, then you're not going to get pulled in by the words, which we've worked so hard on.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like, you know, it's simple things. Like we often like, I see so many clients that are like constantly trying to tell their entire story in every piece of content that they put out. And I'm like, guys, snack size, you know, like we, as copywriters, there's nothing I love more than removing an entire sentence. I'm like, we don't need it. See ya. Bye. Like, and it kills my clients because they're like, but I want them to know that, you know, we were working on it over the weekend. And I'm like, they don't need to. We just need them to buy it. Stop. It's too many words. So it is those things that are like, no matter who I'm working with, it's so hard because again, so many of these clients are just so close to it. It's hard to see like the forest for the trees. So yeah. It's
Yeah,
a,
so valuable. Same thing. I wrote something, I followed all the guidance. I did the thing, and she was like, "This is three different stories. I need you to
yeah, like,
like
but
choose
also I find
one."
like so many of my clients, I'm like, you think you have 12 posts, you actually have 40. So great news. We actually have content for the next month, but we need to rework these.
Yeah. I think that, it's forest for the trees. I often say you can't really read the label from inside the jar. There's just that
Totally.
value of having somebody who is both an expert and objective
Yeah.
and can, really provide, I often call it like caring objective challenge, right? Like, I'm going to ask you some hard questions. And,
Totally.
but like, think successful
Well, I
business
always say that
people.
to my clients, like the typical, like, I'm going to hold your hand when I say this,
Yes.
as I know this is your baby, but like nobody cares. Like, and it is trying to figure out what people care about. And I even see it on my own side when I'm doing my own marketing. It's like, it's so different for me to do my content versus like a client's content. Client's
Oh,
content, I'm like, oh, this totally makes sense. And it's just black and white for me. Where mine, I'm like, the nuance and that, no, remove it.
yes.
Get it out of
I always
here.
say if it was for someone else, it would be done. And here I am faffing around like,
Oh, yeah.
it's the reason we, even experts pay for other experts.
Oh, 100%. I literally just hired a copywriter because I'm redoing my website. And I'm like, you know what? I've got it pretty much like wireframed. I'm like, I need your eye because I know I'm saying too much.
Yes. Amazing. Given that you do get exposure to so many businesses because of being, an agency and a consultant, you are servicing other businesses on a daily basis. What do you think is most vital for entrepreneurs and executives to understand about marketing in order to, responsibly, sustainably scale a business?
So I think one of the things I always tell my like really young or like people that are like just getting online because like maybe they've had like a brick and mortar store that is in a high traffic area, but they're really trying to grow their e-com or something like that. Is that you don't have to do all of the things. Right now, there's so much rhetoric online about like you need a TikTok channel and a TikTok shop and an Instagram channel and an Instagram shop. You need email marketing and you need to have this and that and like that is super overwhelming. Let's pick a social channel that will drive website traffic and let's do email marketing. That's it. One social channel, one email marketing strategy. Start there, run deep. Let's get some metrics. Let's start seeing what's working and then go from there. So I think the biggest thing I see is people spreading themselves too thin and then there's no impact made because if you're only giving 5% to each channel, there's no impact. We don't, and then we also don't have like a large enough pool to take stats from and be like, oh, these are the stats that are working and not working. Oh, actually, your demographic that's responding is X, Y, and Z. And we thought it was going to be, ABC. So for me, it's like make the biggest impact on smaller things. And then when we have some knowledge, then we'll branch out. Then we'll add in TikTok. Yeah. Like if I'm all of a sudden looking at a company that I thought was like going to be targeting 40-year-old women, and all of a sudden on Instagram, it's like targeting 25 and under, I'm then moving to TikTok. That's where my balls are. Like, let's do
Okay.
that.
I was
But
going
it's
to
a
ask you
completely
that.
different
Like, how do you
strategy.
choose which platform to start on?
Yeah. So honestly, I still start on Instagram. They have great metrics. They're very user friendly. Most demographics are there if you're using a digital product, like or like something in the digital space. Not a digital product, but if you're doing something in digital marketing, I always say to start with Instagram. I think it's just the place where we're going to have the largest sample size, and again, their metrics are pretty robust, and then we can go from there. But email marketing, man, email marketing is where it's at. It's direct. We know the consumer is further down the funnel. Like Instagram is great for like brand new leads, finding new audience, yada, yada, yada. But like to get them through that funnel, email marketing.
Love it. We kind of can't talk about marketing or really anything these days without talking about AI.
Yeah.
We could probably do a whole episode on it, but I'm curious, it seems inevitable. It's controversial in some ways. Some people argue that it's making us all sound the same. What are you most excited about? And potentially, are there things that you are worried about?
I have two very different opinions on this in my own brain. First of all, I do use it. Second of all, I hate it. So as a copywriter, brand voice is something that's so important to me. Like when I've really worked at companies internally, brand voice is something we as a marketing team discuss all the time. Like, who are you talking to? What should it sound like? What's the nuance? And you can have, even in your friend group, you'll know like how your friends talk or text. Like if someone sent me a text from my sister's phone, I would know it wasn't her through text, like, because you just know that is brand voice. And it's so important and so nuanced. I don't think there's anything wrong though. This is where I usually use it is like, I love to do a structure of something with AI. It saves me a ton of time. I will then go in and completely strip it all apart, put it back together. Without it, because it's cheesy, it's too formal, it sounds artificial. So I do think there's a time and a place for it. And I do think it's something that you can like really sort of use as a tool, but it's not going to, you can still tell. You can still tell when something isn't human. And we talk about this all the time in marketing, is that my in real life activations are as important right now as their digital. Digital is great because it gets new eyeballs in, but nothing will build brand loyalty, lifetime value, or client retention like an in real life event will. It's just something that like you need to still be doing for your top clients. It's something that sets the scene. Like, do you remember when we used to go shopping in the mall and you'd like walk past Abercrombie and Fitch and you would smell it, you would hear it, the lights were dim, the people were beautiful. It had this like you wanted to be like that experience. Yeah. So that's what branding is, right? Marketing is the tactics, like the left side of the brain. Branding is the like creative, intangible, five senses triggered sort of feeling. And for me, an in real life event is still super critical. And that's how I feel about AI, because AI, it just disconnects a bit. So, and being able to use it as a tool, but not as like a actual part, like don't just hit it, be like, oh, that sounds great. See ya.
Right. Yeah. No copy
Sorry,
paste.
Sorry, I'm going to have to hang on 1 second. My mom, I said 10:30. Sorry, I'm still on the call. Okay. Well, can you? Yes. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So no copy paste.
Yeah, exactly.
So other than AI, what is new? What is next? What's coming up for you?
Yeah, I think this thing we're really seeing is like the anti-millennial polished Instagrams and websites. I think are still a great place to like be super polished and put your best foot forward. But social media in general, and this has been going in this direction for a long time, it's a little grittier. It's a little bit more like unkempt and approachable. And yes, there's a lot of like mom buns and tights. I don't think it needs to be that, but I think it can have like, it doesn't have to feel so scripted. We don't need to have like the perfect filters and the face tuned bodies and like all of the things. And it's one thing I really want my clients to do is just like get in front of the camera. It's talking head content is doing awesome. And just really kind of like taking that step back and being a bit more real. And that kind of ties itself to this AI thing is like the people that are being authentic and out there are the ones who are seeing the results. So yeah, we're craving that connection.
I am here for that because the scripted polished thing is not my vibe. And this podcast was, never even meant to be a podcast. It was a fireside chat. So I really appreciate how much you showed up and shared the reality, the nitty gritty behind the journey. If people are listening to you, and clearly, I mean, we could probably do hours on your expertise. Like if they're thinking, I absolutely need Stef, like in my business, I need her insights. Are there any events coming up, or what's the best way to reach you and connect with you and consume your content or get on a call?
Yeah. So the best place to reach me is on Instagram at broad_world. From there, we can book like a consulting call. And it's basically you get an email beforehand, you fill out this little questionnaire so that I'm not coming in being like, hey, sorry, name's Stef. What do you do? What industry are you in? And it's just a good opportunity for you to come with specific questions and be like, this is what I'm doing. It's not working. Or a lot of times people come in and they're like, so I have this idea. I haven't done anything yet, but what does that look like? And it's just a way to sort of like pick my brain in your specific areas, because while I try and offer up a lot of like free content through my Instagram channel, it's just never tailored to exactly what you specifically need. So yeah, the best place to catch me is there, and you can book a time.
Amazing. We'll make sure to put all your links in the show notes. We like to wrap the show up with a few rapid fire questions.
All right.
You can always pass. It can be a one-word answer, just a quick insight into the different aspects of Stef. So you ready?
Sounds good. I'm ready.
Love it. What's one decision that changed everything for you as a leader?
Ooh, probably just branching out on my own and managing contractors versus actual staff or team members.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What does strategy feel like when you're doing it well?
Strategy feels like a map on Google Maps versus like MapQuest from 20 years ago, when it's like actually taking a strategy that actually takes you step by step versus like this scattered MapQuest directional.
I am dying. I love
it. I love Google Maps. I can't walk down my street without it.
Oh my God, MapQuest printed out, like ink ran out at the end. Yeah.
Oh, and then if you got lost, you were hooped because you're like, how do I get back to these directions?
Oh my God. So
what a
good.
time.
Is there a book, a podcast, or a person that really cracked something open for you?
Yeah, you know what? I am such a millennial by saying this, but I am obsessed with Sophia Amoruso from Nasty Gal. I mean, she failed big, she grew big, she failed big, and now she's like on the rebound. And I love what she used to do. I love what she did, and I love how authentic she is about like how she's fully taken a $350 million business and tanked it, and how she's like rebuilding this empire of her own. So I've just always found her vulnerability and openness to be something admirable, and she's also just really cool.
Love a cool girl. What's something you've said never again to in your business?
Never again hiring one person like internally with a similar skill set to me. I would hire someone who had opposing skill set and passions to what I had.
And if you had a free weekend and zero obligations, how would you spend it?
Somewhere quiet and outdoors with my dog and my child, and she would be on her best behavior, and I could read a book with a cocktail. And then at night, my husband and I would just do like a really, really nice dinner somewhere and eat until I had to undo my top button.
That sounds incredible. I love it. Stef, thank you again for being on Builders. Absolutely grateful for your time and candid answers. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Amazing. Thanks again. That's a wrap for this episode of Builders, where we get real about what it actually takes to grow companies that perform without grinding you into the ground. If today's convo sparks something for you, here's what to do next. Follow the show, drop a 5-star review, and share it with someone else who's building big. Don't let it be lonely at the top. If you're ready for more clarity, more leadership freedom, and less of a duct tape and go growth vibe, let's connect. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth. Walk away with a personalized fix-it list that gives you the clarity you've been craving on what to shift now to regain traction and build momentum. For more tools, insights, and my no fluff takes on leadership and scaling strategically, join the Builders Club, also linked in the show notes. You can also head over to leaderswhobuild.com, where you'll find all the links to peep my creds, see client wins, or just confirm that yes, I went to the gym today. Until next time, keep leading boldly, building smart, and living success on your terms.